Hello and welcome to the Red Couch VIP talk live from IPC SPS IPC Drives 2011. My name is Mathis Bayerdorfer. I'm editor-in-chief of the A&D Special Magazine, and I'd like to welcome Craig McDonnell. He's Eaton's automation business manager, and we are talking on the topic industrial automation and machine building challenges in modern marketing and sales strategies. My first question, Mr. McDonnell, years ago the 4 Ps like price, place, product and promotion have been the keystones of marketing. Did that change in the last decade?
I think those fundamental principles are still very, very sound. As we move more towards maybe a more solutions approach, and certainly in a global business, you can probably add some different emphasis to that, but I would say that that still remains the fundamental principle around which we operate. People, maybe partnership, and I think there's a global expectation on quality, so therefore performance maybe has changed and it could be added to those, but I think that foundation is still solid.
And how is the effect on the industry business of these changes?
There's been a maybe first on the change of emphasis. I think many manufacturers now have moved away from the basic component approach in selling components to trying to move much more towards a solution. And I think in an attempt to meet end user solutions, the price scenario in marketing has certainly become a lot more complicated. It's a much more of an integrated approach. As I also mentioned on the performance, performance now has become critical. I think we expect things to work out of the box. I think the expectation has risen immensely in the last 10 years alone, and that now in our marketing and selling strategies needs to be very closely integrated.
Okay. So, do you think there's a bigger recognition for the total cost of ownership? So there's a shift from TCO, from price to TCO?
There has been a partial shift. I think the trends are clear. I think if you talk to a user, for him, absolutely clear total cost of ownership. I am certainly on the levels of integration from machinery OEMs to channel, price does become much more important. So as you move further and further away from the user, the discussion tends to be price. But as you get closer to the user, total cost of ownership is becoming critical.
Okay. So on the consumer side, new kinds of media usage are affecting marketing strategies. Is the B2B business following? What influence do you expect?
I think there has been a shift, there's no doubt. But this is very customer-centric. So it depends what group of users you're talking about. I think if you're talking about, say, the data center world that might be very closely aligned to the IT space, yes, there's been a fundamental shift. If you're talking to maybe some of the more conservative construction sectors, no, you haven't seen as much of a shift. And certainly as a marketeer, we've often been frustrated by the lack of pace of the change, but I think we also have to recognize that the traditional ways of communicating are still there and have been very, very effective.
Okay. What about e-commerce? How did e-commerce develop in the last years, and do you think it's an important form of selling industrial products today, and will it be the best form in the future?
If I can maybe answer the second part of that question first. E-commerce is critical. It doesn't matter if you're B2C or B2B, you absolutely have to use e-commerce. In the B2B environment, it's not about changing the way or changing with whom you transact. It's all about trying to make that transaction more efficient. So if you can get efficiency at simply on the ordering process, you can then certainly redirect a lot of your resources and focus around to maybe more value-add activities that users would expect of us, like technical service, technical support. And certainly an e-commerce is critical in doing that. In the last year or two, though, we have certainly seen a lot of changes, because fundamental in the B2B environment to be able to do e-commerce is the ability to have standardized pricing. And 2008 to 2009, we certainly saw a big disruption in a lot of the standardized pricing procedures. And for a while, e-commerce actually became more difficult. But now, as the business environment has gained a degree of stability again, prices have become more standard. The percentage of our business transacted in the B2B space in e-commerce is now rising again. And that's been a very positive development.
Okay. If technical products get more and more similar, do you think a unique marketing strategy is essential?
Well, I disagree with if technical products get more and more similar. I think we're actually seeing a divergence of ways of which we can address a customer need. Historically, you might have looked at, for example, my own business, an automation business. You probably couldn't have been an automation player unless you were a PLC manufacturer. I think with the technology evolutions, you can now embed logic in many other intelligent devices, and you can come up with a totally different way of answering exactly the same issue. So I don't see the convergence of these technology products, and as a result, because there are so many new ways to meet a customer need, the sales and marketing effort needs to be much more precise and much more specific and be able to explain those needs. And that certainly has placed a greater challenge on the sales and marketing organizations in the automation space.
Okay. So, do you think you're working for a global company? Mm-hmm. Do you think, or do you need different marketing and sales strategies for different regions in the world, or is one global strategy enough?
It's about people, yes, you are seeing multinational approaches. You're seeing people trying to harmonize purchasing at the user. You're seeing global standards developing. So you definitely do need that global reach. But to say that the approach in each country would be the same would be wrong. We're a long, long way from that happening. Okay. I mean, we're sitting in Germany right now, and the comparison maybe between a German way of doing business and an Italian way of doing business requires a completely different approach. Mm-hmm. Both the companies might be a multinational, they might be part of the same company, but we would have to think very, very carefully about a very different approach to those two regions. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So does the size of the company matter? Are there differences between small business sectors and global companies like Eaton?
Size does matter. If I go back 10 years, even in Eaton's evolution, if you looked in the IEC space, we were looking from North America and from a North American perspective, looking into Europe, and we were seeing some really good European manufacturers, and we decided that strategically we needed to be in Europe, and we needed to have a very, very strong presence in Europe. And we did that to get scale, and we needed to be able to get size, and also our customers were also globalizing, so we needed to follow our North American customers into Europe. And it's interesting, as soon as you get scale, you realize there's a different level of scale that also is important, and it is critical in addressing costs. The other point, of course, is as businesses globalize, they expect their suppliers to be able to follow them where they are. And I think one of the great strengths of Eaton is our ability to be able to meet customer needs. Doesn't matter if it's in Canada, North America, the Americas, all the way across Central and Eastern Europe, all the way through to China. And that global reach is a great differentiator for us.
Okay. So, how will marketing and sales change in the future? What do you expect?
I expect really for it to become a lot more segmented in how we approach things. I think as you develop a more solution-orientated approach, as you're driven towards understanding total cost of ownerships, manufacturers like Eaton need to be at the user. And I see definitely a very strong resource shift. We would end up shifting more and more resources to address and understand and support the user. By the same token, the way in which we transact and get our products there will rely on a channel that ends up being a lot more selective. So you'd find manufacturers dealing more exclusively, or not necessarily exclusively, but certainly selectively in different marketplaces with different channel partners in order for them to free this resource to be able to address the user. And the sales and marketing resources and the way in which we approach our business is going to have to evolve accordingly in order to match that change.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this was another session from the Red Couch VIP talk with Craig McDonnell from Eaton. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been good talking to you.